The ache was a familiar tenant in Clara's chest, a dull, constant pressure that had been paying rent for 3 years, 2 months, and 11 days. It was a specific kind of pain, one that sharpened into a blade whenever Maya spoke about Liam. Tonight, the blade was twisting with brutal precision. They were curled on opposite ends of their worn velvet couch, a battlefield of throw pillows between them, and Maya was outlining the latest flaw in the architecture of her relationship. It's like he listens to the words, but doesn't hear the music, you know? Maya's voice was a soft, frustrated sigh, the sound threading itself into the fabric of the quiet apartment. Her brow was furrowed, a delicate line of concern between her perfectly shaped eyebrows that Clara wanted to smooth away with her thumb. Clara just hummed in response, a carefully calibrated sound of support that cost her more than Maya could ever know. Every conversation like this was a vivisection of her own heart. She had to sit there, a portrait of platonic concern, while the woman she loved dissected a romance that was, in Clara's private, desperate opinion, profoundly wrong for her. It was the role she had been assigned, the supportive best friend, the keeper of secrets, the ghost at her own feast of longing. I try to explain what I need, not just things, but a feeling. A sense of being truly seen. Maya gestured with her hands, her silver rings catching the warm, golden light of the lamp beside her. And he just buys me flowers the next day. Nice flowers, but it's like he's trying to solve a math problem instead of understanding a person. I see you, Clara screamed in the echoing silence of her mind. I see every shade of you. I see the gold flecks in your eyes when you're truly happy, the way you chew on your lower lip when you're concentrating, the tiny scar above your left eyebrow from when you fell out of a tree at age 10. I see all of it. I see you. But she said none of that. Instead, she offered, communication is difficult. Maybe he just shows love differently. The words tasted like ash in her mouth, a stale and bitter betrayal of her own feelings. It was a masterful performance of friendship, one she had been perfecting for years. She was the expert consultant on a project she secretly wished would fail. A quiet, situational irony that provided no humor, only a hollow sort of ache. Maya's shoulders slumped. She pulled a cushion into her lap, hugging it tight. Maybe, but it feels empty. Like I'm playing a part. The good girlfriend, I put on the costume, I say the lines, but I go home and I feel nothing. Is that what love is supposed to be, Clara? A performance. The question hung in the air, heavy and sincere. It was a direct hit, an arrow finding the thinnest part of Clara's armor. Because she knew what it was like to perform. She was doing it right now. No, Clara said, her voice softer than she intended, stripped of its carefully constructed neutrality. No, it shouldn't be. Maya looked at her then, her gaze sharp and searching, and for a terrifying second, Clara felt seen in a way that made her want to bolt from the room. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, the familiar landscape of their friendship suddenly shifting into something unknown and treacherous. But the moment passed. Maya's expression softened back into its usual frustrated warmth, and the world righted itself. The ache in Clara's chest settled back into its familiar rhythm, a slow, painful beat against her ribs. She was safe, for now, in the quiet prison of her unrequited love. The stasis was shattered on a Tuesday. It was raining, a relentless, miserable downpour that matched the storm brewing inside Clara's apartment. The catalyst was not a gentle nudge but a full-blown gale force wind in the form of Maya, drenched and shivering on their doorstep, her mascara creating dark, tragic rivers down her cheeks. She didn't have her keys. She hadn't even thought to grab them. He doesn't get it, she sobbed, collapsing into Clara's arms the moment the door was open. Clara was enveloped in the scent of rain, Maya's vanilla perfume, and raw heartbreak. She held on, her own heart fracturing in sympathy and something else, something selfish and hopeful that she immediately crushed. She guided Maya inside, wrapped her in the softest blanket they owned, and made her a cup of chamomile tea, her hands moving with an autopilot efficiency honed by years of practice. She listened as the story tumbled out a fight, not just a disagreement, but a fundamental chasm that had opened between Maya and Liam over dinner. It was about the future, about values, about the very music Maya had complained he couldn't hear. He had finally heard it, and he had told her it was noise. Clara's apartment, usually a shared space of easy comfort, felt charged with a new, volatile energy. The air was thick with unspoken things. After Maya's tears had subsided into shuddering breaths and she was curled into a small ball on the couch, the blanket pulled up to her chin, she looked at Clara with wide, exhausted eyes. The usual charismatic spark was gone, replaced by a profound vulnerability that made Clara's breath catch. "I can't be alone tonight," Maya whispered, her voice fragile. "Not in my room. It feels too empty." Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She braced herself for the request to sleep on the couch, to be a comforting presence in the living room. But Maya's next words redrew the map of their entire relationship. "Clara, can I sleep in your bed? With you?" The question was a stone dropped into the placid pool of their friendship, its ripples radiating outwards, touching everything. This was new territory. They had shared beds at sleepovers as teenagers, but this was different. This was not the casual intimacy of youth. This was a request born from distress, a plea for a level of closeness they hadn't shared in years. It was a line, and Maya was asking them to cross it together. Fear warred with a dizzying, treacherous hope inside Clara. The fear was of her own lack of control, of what it would mean to lie beside Maya all night, to breathe the same air, to feel the warmth of her body just inches away. The hope was a venomous, beautiful thing that whispered of possibility. "Of course," Clara heard herself say, the words feeling like they belonged to someone braver. "Of course you can." Lying in bed that night was an exercise in exquisite torture. Clara lay rigidly on her side, facing away from Maya, her every muscle tensed. She could feel the heat radiating from Maya's body, a magnetic pull she fought with every fiber of her being. She could hear the soft, uneven rhythm of Maya's breathing as she drifted toward sleep. The familiar scent of vanilla and chamomile filled Clara's senses, a combination that she knew would be imprinted on her memory forever as the smell of impossible closeness. She focused on the rain lashing against the windowpane, trying to anchor herself to the sound. But her awareness was entirely consumed by the woman beside her. Every tiny shift in the mattress, every soft sigh from Maya, was an electrical current that shot straight through her. She was a lightning rod in a thunderstorm of her own making. Then she felt it. A hesitant, gentle pressure against her back. Maya, in her sleep or perhaps in that hazy space just before it, had shifted, her body curling instinctively towards warmth, towards comfort, towards Clara. A soft hand came to rest on her waist, the touch featherlight, almost accidental. But it was not accidental. Clara's breath hitched. A fire spread from the point of contact, a scorching heat that had nothing to do with body temperature. It was pure, unadulterated feeling. A hurricane of longing and terror and a tenderness so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She did not move. She did not breathe. She simply lay there, a statue with a wildly beating heart, and let herself feel the weight of Maya's hand, a brand of unspoken trust that seared itself into her very soul. The line had been crossed. There was no going back. The following weeks were a slow, delicate dance of escalating intimacy. Maya never moved back to her own room. Liam was a ghost, a series of ignored text messages and unanswered calls that Maya dealt with in hushed, firm tones behind her closed bedroom door before returning to the sanctuary of Clara's room each night. The unspoken arrangement became their new normal. The bed was no longer a space of rigid tension for Clara, but one of soft, unfolding vulnerability for them both. They talked. They talked more than they ever had before, in the hushed, sacred hours between midnight and dawn. The conversations were a quiet excavation of Maya's heart. "I think I've been trying to force a puzzle piece into a space it was never meant to fit," Maya confessed one night, her voice a mere whisper in the dark. She was tracing patterns on Clara's arm, an unconscious gesture that had become a habit, sending shivers across Clara's skin. With Liam. With all of them, really. "I kept thinking if I just pushed hard enough, it would click into place." "And it never did?" Clara asked, her own voice thick with sleep and carefully suppressed emotion. Never. It always felt like I was shaving off parts of myself to make it work. The parts one liked best, Maya's fingers stilled on Clara's arm. When I'm with you, I feel whole. I don't have to pretend. It's the only time I don't feel like I'm playing a role. A knife of hope, sharp and terrifying, twisted in Clara's gut. Was it possible? Could Maya be feeling even a fraction of what she felt? Clara was too afraid to ask, too terrified of shattering the fragile ecosystem they had built. So she just listened, her body a canvas for Maya's idle touches, her heart a repository for Maya's dawning realizations. Clara started noticing things, small shifts in Maya's orbit. She saw the way Maya's gaze would sometimes soften when she looked at her, a new kind of tenderness blooming there. More than once, as they talked on the couch, Clara would look up and find Maya's eyes fixed not on her face, but on her lips, her expression a mixture of curiosity and confusion before she would quickly look away, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. Each instance was a breadcrumb, a clue leading Clara deeper into a forest of hope she was afraid she would get lost in. The breaking point, the moment the subtext screamed its way to the surface, came on a Saturday. Liam had been persistent, and Maya, with a heavy sigh, had finally agreed to a closure dinner. She insisted it was just to end things properly, cleanly. Clara's stomach was a knot of anxiety, but she nodded and offered to help her get ready, the familiar role of supportive friend feeling like a costume that was now 2 sizes too small. "I don't even know what to wear to break a man's heart," Maya said, her voice laced with a dark, weary humor as she stood before her open closet. "Is there a dress code for that?" "Something that makes you feel strong," Clara suggested, her voice steadier than she felt. Maya was quiet for a moment, then she looked at Clara, a strange, unreadable light in her eyes. "Okay, help me pick. I trust your taste more than anyone's." Clara's heart did a painful little flip. She sat on the edge of Maya's bed as Maya pulled out 2 dresses, a sleek black one and a deep emerald green one. They debated the merits of each, the familiar ritual a strange comfort in the midst of the churning tension between them. "I think I'll try the green one first," Maya said, disappearing into her adjoined bathroom. "Tell me what you think." Clara waited, her hands clasped in her lap. She prepared her face, arranging her features into an expression of friendly appraisal. She heard the rustle of fabric, the soft click of the bathroom door. "Okay," Maya's voice was hesitant. "What do you think?" Clara looked up, and the world stopped turning. Maya was not wearing the green dress. She was not wearing any dress. She was standing in the doorway in nothing but a set of delicate, black lace lingerie. It was beautiful, elegant, and devastatingly intimate. It was not something a woman wore for her friend's opinion. It was a statement, a question, a dare, all presented in fragile silk and vulnerable skin. The air left Clara's lungs in a silent rush. Her carefully prepared expression crumbled. She could only stare, her gaze taking in the soft curve of Maya's hips, the smooth plane of her stomach, the way the lace lay against her skin. It was not a gesture of seduction. It felt rawer than that. It felt like a plea. Like Maya had stripped away every last layer of pretense and was standing before her, utterly, terrifyingly bare. "Maya," Clara breathed, her voice a ghost of a sound. "Is this?" Maya began, her voice trembling slightly. She wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of sudden self-consciousness. "Is this attractive?" It was not a question for Liam. Clara knew, with a certainty that was both terrifying and electrifying, that the question was for her. Only for her. The world had narrowed to this single room, to the space between them, humming with a voltage that made the hair on Clara's arms stand up. Her gaze, of its own volition, lifted from the heart-stopping sight of Maya's body and met her eyes. And then, slowly, inexorably, it dropped to her lips. Maya's breath hitched, a tiny, audible sound in the deafening silence. She saw where Clara was looking. She knew. The moment stretched, taut and shimmering, filled with 3 years of unspoken words and repressed longing. It was the point of no return. A truth had been laid bare in the room, more naked than Maya's body. Finally, Maya whispered, "I'm not going." "What?" Clara asked, her mind still reeling. To dinner, Maya clarified, her eyes locked on Clara's. "I'm canceling. I can't." It wouldn't be fair to him. She took a small, hesitant step into the room, away from the safety of the doorway. "Because I wouldn't be thinking about him. The date with Liam never happened." Maya sent a curt, final text message, her fingers moving with a decisiveness that seemed to settle something deep within her. The rest of the evening passed in a strange, humming silence. They ordered takeout, ate sitting on the floor of the living room, and avoided looking directly at each other, as if the charge from that moment in the bedroom was still arcing between them, too powerful to confront head-on. The lingerie had been put away, replaced by a soft, oversized sweatshirt, but Clara couldn't erase the image from her mind. It was burned onto the back of her eyelids. They retreated to Clara's room, to the bed that had become their shared island, but the easy comfort was gone, replaced by a thick, palpable tension. They lay side by side in the dark, backs not touching, a careful foot of space between them that felt wider than an ocean. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was a living thing, breathing with questions. Clara could stand it no longer. The not knowing was worse than any rejection. The fear had been her companion for so long, but now, a new kind of courage, born of Maya's breathtaking vulnerability, began to stir. But before she could find the words, Maya spoke, her voice cutting through the darkness, quiet but firm. "Something is wrong," she said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. "And it's not just me and Liam. It's here, in this room, with us." Clara's heart seized. This was it. The confrontation. Maya rolled over to face her, a dim silhouette in the sliver of moonlight filtering through the window. "You've been different for weeks. Ever since that first night. You're quiet. You hold your breath sometimes, like you're waiting for something to break." Her voice dropped even lower, becoming more intense. "What is it, Clara? What aren't you telling me?" The direct question was a physical blow. There was no room for evasion, no space to hide. Clara's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. She started, but her throat was tight, the words trapped behind a dam of fear. "Please," Maya whispered, and there was such desperation in that single word, such a raw need for honesty, that it broke the dam. "I feel like I'm going crazy. My whole world feels like it's been turned upside down, and you're the only thing that feels stable, but you're also the epicenter of the earthquake. I don't understand it." She paused, taking a shaky breath. I think I've been trying to feel for him what I feel when I'm just sitting on the couch with you. That ease. That feeling of being home." Her voice cracked on the last word. "And today, when I was standing in that doorway, I wasn't asking for his benefit. I was asking for yours. I wanted to know if you..." She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Then, she found a different one. "Clara, I've been thinking about kissing you." The confession landed in the silent room with the force of a detonation. It was everything Clara had ever dreamed of hearing and everything she had been terrified of. The electricity that had been humming beneath the surface for weeks erupted into a full-blown storm. Hope, wild and untamed, surged through her, so powerful it was almost painful. It gave her the strength to finally be honest. "You think you've been thinking about it?" Clara's voice was a ragged whisper, trembling but clear. "Maya, I haven't thought about much else for 3 years." The silence that followed was different. It wasn't tense or questioning. It was a silence of pure, dumbfounded shock. Clara could feel Maya's stillness, could practically hear the gears turning in her mind as she processed the timeline, the weight of those words. 3 years. Maya breathed, the number an echo of disbelief. 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, Clara confessed, the precision of it laying her heart completely bare. There were no more secrets, no more walls. There was only the truth, stark and terrifying and beautiful, hanging in the space between them. Maya shifted closer, the careful ocean of space between them vanishing in an instant. Her hand found Clara's in the dark, her fingers lacing through hers with a sense of rightness, of coming home. The touch was no longer accidental or unconscious. It was deliberate. It was an anchor. "Oh, Clara," Maya whispered, and her voice was filled with a universe of emotion, regret, wonder, revelation. All this time? You were sitting right there, listening to me cry about men who were never, ever right for me, and you felt everything. Clara finished for her, the single word encompassing the entire library of her hidden feelings. The ache, the longing, the quiet devastation, the unwavering love. I felt everything. Why didn't you say anything? I was terrified, Clara admitted, squeezing Maya's hand. I would rather have you as a friend than not have you at all. I couldn't risk losing you. You could never lose me, Maya said, her voice fierce with a newfound certainty. You idiot. You beautiful, patient idiot. Don't you see? I think I was falling in love with you this whole time, and I just didn't have the right language for it. I was trying to fit this feeling. She squeezed Clara's hand tighter, into a box where it didn't belong. I wasn't measuring those relationships against some ideal. I was measuring them against you. And they all came up short. They were never even in the race. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes, hot and cleansing. The validation, the sheer relief of being understood so completely after years of hiding, was overwhelming. Maya's other hand came up, her thumb brushing away a tear that escaped and traced a path down Clara's cheek. The touch was electric, a jolt of pure connection that stole Clara's breath. Her face was so close now, Clara could feel her warm breath, could smell the faint, lingering scent of vanilla. Can I? Maya whispered, her voice husky, her gaze dropping to Clara's lips in the moonlight. Can I kiss you? Really kiss you? Clara couldn't find words. She could only nod, a small, jerky movement that conveyed all of her yearning. And then Maya's lips met hers. It was tentative at first, a soft, questioning brush of skin against skin. It was a question and an answer all at once. It tasted of salt from their shared tears and the sweet promise of something new. It was nothing like Clara had imagined and everything she had ever wanted. All the fear, all the years of painful silence, melted away in that single, gentle touch. Then, the kiss deepened. The initial hesitation gave way to a dawning certainty, a mutual urgency. It was a kiss of discovery, of recognition. Maya's hand slid from Clara's cheek to tangle in her hair, pulling her closer, while Clara's arms wrapped around Maya's waist, finally holding her the way she had always dreamed of. It wasn't a kiss of explosive passion, but of profound, soul-deep relief. It was the feeling of a key finally sliding into a lock it had been made for. It was clicking into place. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, they didn't go far. Their foreheads rested together, their breaths mingling in the small space between them. Oh, Maya breathed out, a sound of pure wonder. Wow, Clara whispered back, her heart feeling so full she thought it might burst. The ache that had lived in her chest for so long was gone. In its place was a warm, glowing light. That, Maya said, her voice thick with emotion, that felt right. More right than anything in my entire life. They lay there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, the silence now comfortable and profound. The confession and the kiss had changed the very air in the room. The world had shifted on its axis again, but this time, it had settled into perfect alignment. I'm scared, Clara admitted into the soft fabric of Maya's sweatshirt, the confession coming easily now, in this new space of honesty. I'm terrified, Maya echoed, her arms tightening around her. What does this mean? What do we do now? The questions were huge, daunting. There was Liam to deal with formally. There were families and friends and a whole life that had been built on a different foundation. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in fog. Clara pulled back just enough to look into Maya's eyes, which shone in the dim light. We figure it out, she said, her voice gaining a strength she didn't know she possessed. Together. We just take it one day at a time. Maya smiled, a real, brilliant smile that lit up her whole face. It was the smile Clara had seen 1,000 times, but seeing it now, knowing it was because of her, made it breathtakingly new. Okay, she said. One day at a time. I can do that. As long as I'm doing it with you. She leaned in and kissed Clara again, this time with a soft, sweet confidence. It was a kiss that felt like a promise. A promise that whatever came next, they would face it from the same side. The fear was still there, a faint hum in the background, but it was overshadowed by a soaring, brilliant hope. For the first time in 3 years, Clara felt like she could finally breathe. 3 weeks later, the world was a different color. The gray veil of uncertainty had lifted, revealing a life saturated with a vibrant, joyful hue Clara hadn't known was missing. Their apartment, once a stage for her quiet suffering, was now simply their home, filled with an easy, humming rhythm of shared life. Liam was a memory, a chapter closed with a quiet, civil phone call that had left Maya looking not sad, but relieved. Free. It was a Saturday morning. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, golden sprites. The air smelled of freshly ground coffee and something warm and sweet, like vanilla, that Clara now permanently associated with Maya, with happiness. Clara stood at the counter, pouring hot water over coffee grounds, the simple ritual a comforting anchor in her new reality. A pair of arms slid around her waist from behind, and a soft chin rested on her shoulder. Morning, Maya mumbled into her neck, her voice still thick with sleep. Clara leaned back into the embrace, her heart giving a familiar, happy flutter. Morning, she replied, turning her head to press a soft kiss to Maya's temple. Coffee's almost ready. You're always one step ahead of me, Maya murmured, her lips curving into a smile against Clara's skin. They stood like that for a moment, swaying gently, two people who had found their natural rhythm. It was a simple, domestic moment, yet it felt more profound and real to Clara than any grand, romantic gesture could ever be. This was the love Maya had been searching for, not a performance, but a quiet, comfortable truth. It was the love Clara had almost given up on ever having. I was just thinking, Maya said softly, her fingers tracing idle patterns on Clara's stomach, a touch that no longer sent her into a panic, but filled her with a deep sense of peace. About how scared I was. To admit that my life wasn't what I thought it should be. To admit that what I really wanted was right in front of me the whole time. Clara turned in her arms to face her, taking Maya's face in her hands. She looked into those eyes, now clear and full of an unguarded love that was directed entirely at her. I was scared too, she admitted. I was scared that the best thing in my life was something I could only ever look at, never have. Maya's expression softened. She leaned in and rested her forehead against Clara's, a gesture that had become their silent way of saying everything at once. Then we're both exactly where we need to be. Clara smiled, a real, unburdened smile that reached her eyes. The ache was a distant memory, a ghost of a feeling from another lifetime. She understood now that all those years of quiet pining hadn't been a prison, but a long, winding path that had, impossibly, led her home. She had learned that sometimes the most frightening dares, like standing in a doorway wearing nothing but your own terrifying truth, led to the most beautiful discoveries.